When someone observes that your dignity has grown stronger than your love for them, the first thing they confront is a reality they cannot control. Love, once presumed to be a bridge connecting your hearts, now exists on its own terms, governed by your self-respect rather than expectation. They see that no act of manipulation, plea, or pressure can bend your principles, and in that observation, a subtle tension arises. Your presence, calm yet unwavering, reflects a sense of worth and inner balance that they cannot influence. It is not arrogance or superiority, but the quiet insistence on being whole and intact, independent of their desire or acknowledgement. They may feel admiration, but it is mixed with a strange unease, for they realize that the familiar dynamic of closeness, where love might have meant control or compliance, has shifted. They are forced to witness a self-contained power, a force that is neither diminished by their absence nor amplified by their presence. In their mind, this becomes a revelation. Affection alone is insufficient to bridge the space between hearts if dignity stands firm, unyielding, and luminous. Your love no longer serves as a tool to soothe, please, or maintain connection. It is a choice, exercised freely, and that freedom both inspires and challenges them. This shift in perception often triggers a deep cognitive dissonance within them. They may have assumed that your devotion was endless, that it could be counted on regardless of circumstance, yet the sight of your dignity imposes a boundary they cannot cross. This boundary is not physical but moral and emotional, a line drawn by the awareness of your own value and the refusal to compromise it for anyone's comfort. They begin to examine their own motives, their past actions, and the ways in which they may have underestimated the strength of your character. What once seemed simple or familiar now appears complex and imposing, as they struggle to reconcile the affection they expected with the integrity they now witness. There is a subtle fear that emerges, not of losing you perhaps, but of confronting the reality that influence and control hold little sway over a person who refuses to sacrifice their essence. They may replay interactions in their mind, searching for moments when they could have acknowledged this strength. But the clarity of your dignity makes the past feel irrevocable, and their reflection grows increasingly sober. As this realization settles, admiration begins to surface alongside humility. They recognize that true connection cannot thrive without mutual respect, and that a heart surrendered without self-possession is incomplete. Your actions, or sometimes your silence, communicate an understanding that love must coexist with boundaries and self-regard, and this understanding challenges their assumptions about relationships. They may feel inspired, perhaps even awed, by your capacity to remain anchored in principle, to love without losing the sense of who you are. There is an ethical weight to this observation. They realize that any attempt to reclaim authority or demand affection would be futile, and that real intimacy can only emerge where dignity is honored. This recognition is transformative, not because of confrontation, but because of the quiet clarity you exhibit. They are invited indirectly to reevaluate their own behavior, to recognize that the power to influence another's heart is limited, and that integrity often speaks louder than desire. Ultimately, witnessing your dignity surpass love evokes a profound reflection on value and authenticity. They understand that your self-respect is not a barrier to affection, but a foundation for it, a reminder that the essence of connection is voluntary, not compulsory. In seeing this, they confront their own limitations and their previous assumptions about attachment, control, and influence. Your strength, gentle yet firm, becomes a silent teacher, demonstrating that the deepest bonds are formed not through insistence or expectation, but through the deliberate choice to engage with another on equal footing. They leave with a complex mixture of respect, contemplation, and awareness, knowing that love, no matter how intense, cannot overshadow the power of a person who honors their own dignity. The lesson lingers. The mind and heart respond not only to affection, but to the quiet, unwavering declaration of self-worth, and it reshapes the way they perceive connection, intimacy, and the profound force of authentic presence. When someone perceives that your dignity has overtaken your love, the first thing they often feel is surprise, a subtle shock at the unexpected shift in the emotional landscape. They may have believed that your love could be guided, influenced, or even taken for granted, but your steadfast self-respect interrupts that assumption. It is not a dramatic declaration or a public display, but a quiet, consistent awareness of your own value that commands attention. In witnessing this, they realize that affection alone is no longer the measure of connection, that love cannot replace personal integrity or compromise the standards you set for yourself. They may feel a mixture of awe and discomfort, because they are now observing someone whose decisions and emotional boundaries exist independently of their expectations. Your love remains present, but it is intentional, measured, and unyielding in its adherence to principle. In that realization, they are confronted with a new reality. You cannot be possessed emotionally, and the equilibrium of influence they assumed has shifted entirely. This awareness can unsettle them, prompting reflection on how they approached the relationship and how they responded to your prior kindness or patience. As this awareness deepens, cognitive tension often emerges. They may struggle to reconcile the love they once thought guaranteed with the dignity you now display. The realization that they cannot command your loyalty or reshape your emotional priorities forces them to look inward, to examine their own motives and behaviors. This is a subtle but powerful confrontation. They are faced with the truth that emotional dependency and attachment are not substitutes for authenticity, and that genuine intimacy cannot exist where one person's self-respect is compromised. They may begin to question moments of negligence, oversight, or manipulation, recognizing that these actions had no lasting effect on your core values. In doing so, they are compelled to reassess their own understanding of connection, authority, and influence within relationships. Your presence, calm yet unwavering, illustrates that true strength is not measured by control over another's heart, but by the consistency with which one honors personal boundaries and ethical integrity. This shift often leads to admiration, tempered with humility. They see that your love is not a currency to be spent or a tool to be leveraged, but a deliberate choice that reflects your inner balance and moral clarity. Witnessing this forces them to recognize that affection without respect is hollow, and that any attempts to regain dominance over your emotions would be both ineffective and inappropriate. In their mind, they are learning an important lesson about relational dynamics. That dignity is not opposition to love, but the foundation upon which meaningful, sustainable connection is built. They may feel challenged, inspired, or even cautious, but the impression is undeniable. They are observing a person who values self-respect above desire for approval, whose choices reflect principle rather than submission. This realization changes the way they perceive relationships, intimacy, and influence, leaving them with a quiet but profound understanding of the interplay between love and personal integrity. Ultimately, observing your dignity surpass love compels them to a deeper reflection on themselves and on human connection. They may leave the encounter with a mixture of respect, contemplation, and a subtle sense of awe, recognizing that affection alone cannot substitute for self-possession and moral clarity. Your strength, expressed through calm resolve and unwavering boundaries, demonstrates that the truest bonds arise when love coexists with dignity. They are prompted to question how they approach others, to understand the difference between control and respect, and to grasp the power inherent in honoring another's autonomy. In witnessing your self-possession, they are quietly transformed. Learning that influence is limited, admiration grows naturally, and genuine connection is built upon the recognition of personal worth. When a person witnesses your dignity rising above your affection for them, the first impression is often an uneasy astonishment. They realize that your love, once thought to be limitless and pliable, is no longer a tool to be managed or a reflection of their influence. Your self-respect operates independently, defining the boundaries of your engagement and demonstrating that your emotional presence is a conscious choice rather than a given. They may notice the quiet firmness in your posture, the clarity in your decisions, and the absence of need for external validation. This sight is unsettling because it challenges their expectations. They may have assumed that affection guarantees access, that love entails acquiescence. But here is evidence to the contrary. Your love is measured and principled, and they are forced to confront the reality that emotional leverage has limits. In this recognition, their mind wrestles with a subtle mixture of admiration, guilt, and introspection, realizing that your integrity is a force they cannot sway, and that your heart operates according to a moral compass that is entirely your own. This confrontation often triggers a deep, internal dialogue within them. They may begin to replay moments of the past, scrutinizing instances where they took your affection for granted or assumed it could be shaped by their desires. There is a growing awareness that they cannot manipulate or control the emotional balance between you, and this awareness generates cognitive tension. They are forced to acknowledge that love devoid of self-respect is fragile, and that attempts to influence or reclaim your attention are inherently limited when your dignity is the guiding principle. They may feel a mix of regret, humility, and even discomfort as they confront the realization that their assumptions about relational hierarchy were misguided. The presence of your self-possession, calm and unwavering, serves as a silent but powerful demonstration of the fact that true connection relies on mutual respect and choice, not obligation or emotional dependency. As the observation deepens, they often experience a subtle shift toward admiration tempered with reflection. They see that your actions are deliberate, that every act of kindness or engagement is rooted in conscious integrity rather than expectation. This clarity forces them to confront their own attitudes toward relationships and connection, highlighting the contrast between your self-directed presence and their desire for control. They may feel a cautious respect, understanding that attempts to dominate or demand affection would be ineffective and incompatible with the principles you embody. Your dignity, visible yet understated, illuminates a path toward authentic relational dynamics, where boundaries are honored, choices are voluntary, and emotional power rests not in manipulation but in self-awareness. Ultimately, observing your dignity stronger than love invites them to a profound reflection on human interaction and personal growth. They recognize that influence over another's heart is limited. Admiration is earned through authenticity, and connection is most enduring when love is coupled with self-respect. The awareness leaves a lasting impression, not as resentment or defeat, but as a quiet understanding that genuine intimacy arises only when each person retains their integrity. They leave contemplating their own values, choices, and approach to relationships, transformed by the clarity and quiet power of your unwavering dignity, learning that love flourishes most fully when it is offered to a whole, self-respecting individual. When a person observes that your dignity has grown stronger than your love for them, they are confronted with a truth that challenges their assumptions about influence and attachment. They may have believed that your affection guaranteed access to your emotions, that love was a tool through which they could navigate the relationship, but the sight of your self-respect reveals a reality they cannot alter. Your presence communicates strength without aggression, composure without withdrawal, and clarity without justification. They notice that your decisions are guided by principle rather than desire for approval, and that your heart is no longer subject to external pressure. In this realization, they may feel a mixture of admiration and subtle unease, as the familiar dynamics they relied upon are suddenly transformed. They are faced with a person who is autonomous, whose love is intentional rather than automatic, and who cannot be swayed by expectation or entitlement. This forces them to reflect on their own behavior and the ways in which they may have taken your presence or affection for granted, igniting a quiet but profound internal reckoning. The recognition of your dignity often triggers cognitive dissonance within them. They struggle to reconcile their expectation of influence with the reality that your self-respect defines your boundaries. In the past, they may have assumed that love implied compliance or that emotional attachment could be leveraged to maintain control. Now, faced with your unwavering composure, they are compelled to question their assumptions and reevaluate the nature of the connection. They may experience subtle discomfort or regret as they recall moments where they undervalued your integrity or tested the limits of your patience. This reflection is not necessarily dramatic or confrontational, but it is deeply felt. The presence of someone who honors their own worth challenges them to confront the limitations of their own approach to relationships. The realization is both humbling and instructive, revealing that influence over another's heart is not proportional to affection alone, and that the deepest bonds are rooted in mutual respect. As this awareness settles, admiration begins to emerge alongside reflection. They recognize that your love is not passive or reactive, but a conscious expression of choice anchored in self-possession. This insight reshapes their perception of emotional power, highlighting that genuine connection cannot be commanded or forced, but is nurtured by integrity and principled boundaries. Your presence communicates a quiet authority that does not diminish love, but elevates it, demonstrating that affection offered freely, without compromise to one's dignity, carries a profound and lasting weight. They begin to understand that any attempts to manipulate or reclaim influence would be futile, and that the strength of character you embody creates both respect and distance, inviting them to engage with honesty and introspection rather than expectation. Ultimately, observing your dignity surpass love leaves a lasting impression. They depart with a heightened awareness of authenticity, accountability, and the value of self-respect within relationships. They may feel humbled, reflective, and even inspired, recognizing that the power to influence another is limited, admiration is earned, and true connection thrives where love is balanced with integrity. Your steadfast presence teaches that dignity is not opposition to love, but its foundation, and that honoring one's own worth transforms not only personal experience, but also the perspective of those who witness it. In this encounter, they are silently invited to reconsider their understanding of intimacy, connection, and the profound force of a self-respecting individual whose affection is offered deliberately, not demanded. When a person sees that your dignity has overtaken your love for them, their first response is often a quiet shock, an awareness that the dynamic they assumed has shifted. They may have believed that your affection could be taken for granted, or that it would always be available to soothe, reassure, or validate them. Yet, your self-respect demonstrates that your emotional presence is neither automatic nor unconditional. It exists within boundaries defined by principle, awareness, and a deep understanding of your own worth. They may feel unsettled as they witness a person whose inner strength cannot be swayed by expectation or desire. In this, your dignity acts as a mirror, reflecting a form of power that is subtle but undeniable, a force grounded not in domination but in unwavering self-possession. This realization forces them to confront the fact that your love is intentional, not obligatory, and that any assumptions about control or influence are no longer valid. They are compelled to examine not only your behavior, but also their own, reflecting on the moments where they may have taken your patience or generosity for granted, and recognizing a gap between expectation and the reality of your integrity. The recognition of your dignity often triggers internal conflict within them. They begin to notice the contrast between their expectations and the reality they are now witnessing. That love, while present, is guided by self-respect rather than dependency. This creates cognitive tension as they are forced to reconcile the past, when they may have assumed influence over your heart, with the present reality that you operate according to your own principles. They may experience unease, subtle regret, or even admiration, as the boundaries you maintain highlight both your autonomy and the futility of attempts to control or sway you. This awareness can be transformative for them, leading to reflection on their own patterns of behavior, their reliance on attachment to assert influence, and the importance of honoring the autonomy and integrity of others. The clarity of your self-possession is a quiet lesson in the interplay between affection and personal authority, demonstrating that connection is strengthened by choice, not obligation. As this understanding deepens, admiration emerges alongside reflection. They recognize that your love is neither passive nor conditional on their approval, but is an intentional offering, anchored in self-awareness and ethical clarity. Your presence communicates that emotional engagement must coexist with respect for boundaries, and that true intimacy cannot be forged through manipulation or expectation. They begin to understand that any effort to reclaim influence over your heart would be both ineffective and inappropriate, and that the very strength they observe in you commands respect and thoughtful consideration. Your dignity does not diminish love, but elevates it, showing that affection paired with self-respect carries a depth and weight that is enduring and unassailable. They are prompted to reconsider how they approach relationships, influence, and emotional connection, learning that admiration is born from authenticity, not control, and that genuine bonds flourish when personal integrity is honored. Ultimately, observing your dignity surpass love leaves a lasting impression. They may depart feeling humbled, introspective, and even inspired, recognizing that influence is limited, respect is earned, and true connection is rooted in the balance between autonomy and affection. Your steadfast self-possession serves as both example and boundary, teaching that dignity is the foundation upon which meaningful, sustainable love is built. They leave with a heightened awareness of the profound effect that self-respect has on relationships, understanding that authentic connection is nurtured when love is offered intentionally, freely, and without compromise to personal integrity. This encounter silently reshapes their perception of intimacy, influence, and the enduring force of a person who honors their own worth while engaging in connection. When someone observes that your dignity has surpassed your love for them, the first thing they feel is a subtle disruption of expectation. They may have assumed that affection equates to availability, that love can be counted on as a steady stream regardless of their actions, but witnessing your self-respect shatters this assumption. Your presence, calm yet firm, communicates a quiet authority that cannot be swayed by manipulation, expectation, or desire for approval. They notice that your emotional choices are guided by principle rather than attachment, and that your heart, though generous, is not vulnerable to being taken for granted. This realization can be startling because it disrupts familiar dynamics. They expected influence, but they are faced with autonomy. Your dignity reveals a personal sovereignty that neither diminishes your love nor allows it to be treated lightly. In seeing this, they are forced into introspection, reflecting on the ways they may have underestimated your strength, tested your patience, or assumed compliance. The experience is unsettling, not through confrontation, but through the quiet clarity of a person whose affection exists on their own terms, revealing the profound difference between love as possession and love as deliberate choice. This perception often triggers an internal re-evaluation. They may begin replaying past interactions, recognizing moments when they relied on expectation or assumed that their desires could override your boundaries. There is cognitive tension as they confront the contrast between their assumptions and the reality of your self-possession. They may feel unease, subtle regret, or admiration, realizing that the rules they thought applied no longer hold sway. The recognition that your dignity defines your emotional engagement forces them to consider their own patterns, how they may have conflated love with control or overlooked the autonomy of those they care for. This reflection is not dramatic, but deeply instructive, illuminating the truth that genuine intimacy is not earned by insistence, but by respect, integrity, and deliberate choice. Your steady composure becomes a benchmark, a quiet but powerful example of how self-respect governs the flow of connection and transforms relational dynamics. As awareness settles, admiration and humility begin to emerge. They see that your love is not passive or dependent on their validation, but intentional, anchored in ethical clarity and self-awareness. Observing this, they understand that influence and emotional leverage are limited, that genuine connection is strongest where boundaries are honored and respect is mutual. Your dignity elevates affection rather than diminishes it, revealing the depth of love that is freely given yet unyielding in principle. They are prompted to reconsider their understanding of intimacy, authority, and emotional engagement, realizing that admiration grows naturally in the presence of authenticity, and that meaningful bonds arise when love is balanced with personal integrity. The experience leaves them reflective, aware, and quietly transformed. Ultimately, witnessing your dignity stronger than love leaves a lasting impression on their consciousness. They are reminded that influence over another's heart is finite, that respect must be earned rather than assumed, and that true connection is cultivated through integrity and self-possession. Your presence, unwavering and principled, teaches that dignity is not opposition to love, but its foundation, and that authentic bonds thrive only when love is offered deliberately, with awareness, and without compromise to personal worth. They depart with a deeper understanding of themselves, relationships, and the transformative power of a person whose self-respect defines the quality and boundaries of their affection, leaving a lasting mark on how they approach connection and intimacy. When someone observes that your dignity has become stronger than your love for them, their first response is often one of subtle shock and introspection. They may have assumed that your affection was an endless supply, available to satisfy expectation or soothe discomfort, but your self-respect reveals that love is not interchangeable with submission. Your presence, calm and assured, communicates a quiet authority that is grounded in personal principle rather than dependence on their approval. They notice that your choices are guided by your own understanding of worth and boundaries, not by desire to appease or maintain their comfort. This realization can be unsettling because it challenges assumptions of influence and control they once took for granted. In this moment, they are confronted with a person who is autonomous, deliberate, and emotionally self-reliant, and it forces them to reflect on their previous behaviors, misjudgments, or attempts to shape your decisions. They may feel a mixture of admiration, humility, and unease, realizing that your love is offered consciously on terms defined by your own dignity, and that